So where do you see your business going in the future? I mean, if you talk about, I guess you have a strategy for the development of your business. You've already talked about these different teams that you've built. Where do you see your business going in the next, say, 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I think in about 5 years, I'd like to reach, ideally less than 5 years, but I'd like to reach that 200 property mark where we're managing a portfolio of 200 properties and the rental team can deal with all this stuff in-house. Because what we deal with on the rental side often, the vagaries of dealing with random owners who have their own view on how things should work, other agencies with more or less competent agents, and so there's so many moving parts, and it ends up really being less than ideal. That's all I can say. So I would like to have 200 properties, let's say, also in-house, and let's say we have a vacancy around 10%, which I think would be normal at that level. That means 20 properties need to be rented out. And that's plenty of work for a little rental team in-house to be running around, showing, doing the documents, and and marketing the places. So if we have that, then I think it'll be quite good. The sales team will start getting busy, I think, in a few years selling places. As we buy them, we add value by renovating. Once we go for a few years of letting rent it out, I think quite a few of our owners are going to start to want to maybe unload the property. So the sales team will be busy on the back end. So I don't see any kind of lull for the sales team. There's purchase period and then there's this sale period. Design, yeah, I think we want to be more an established design studio, not just kind of more neutral stuff, but with the experience of dealing with older buildings and all that. And if we have more buyers looking for themselves, they'll be able to be more creative what they want to do in terms of doing more, let's say, more stylish places, a little more texture and nuance to the design. So I think it's where we go with that. And then, like I mentioned before, with a bigger market out there, for sure, I think once all those teams are running, I'll be able to pursue opportunities, and I think we'll have bigger investors, maybe with leverage and credit and things available, to pick up some kind of building somewhere and make it an apartment building for locals, to manage that and rent it out. And our goal is, right now, is to provide an expat quality housing to as many expats as we can. Because I was doing the rentals, and I remember I'd rent places out, and I didn't feel good about it, because I knew they were paying more for a place that was worse than they would have found back home, and paying more for it. Because in a more developed market, €2,000 in, let's say, Brussels, what I understand is a nice apartment. Here at the time when I was doing it 6-7 years ago, it wasn't great. It wasn't clean. The owner was not taking. They were only taking physical cash payments and things like that. Their nanny or something was managing the property, so I didn't feel good about that. I mean, I think they got the best they could, but I'm saying I think it could have been better. So. I think now that we have a bigger company, I feel better about doing that, and then I want to spread that to the local market as well, because I know they're not living in great conditions also. Even if the apartment's okay, the entrances are not nice. If we can get an apartment building, you can add little nice things that make people want to stay there for a long time. A yard, a co-working center downstairs, and clean entrances. I think we can do a lot and bring our mentality and bring our systems to it to improve housing for a lot more people than just 200 expats. Let's put it that way.
Sure. So a lot of plans for the future, huh?
It's just endless. I mean, you see the gap between what is and what could be. With a little bit of smart, focused investment and things like that. I just see endless work for myself, and I enjoy it here. And my aunt asked me. I was home. I'm from in the Boston area, like I mentioned. My aunt says, "When are you coming back to Boston?" I said, "Auntie, I'll come back when I live at same quality of life in downtown Boston as I do in downtown Kyiv. I have my family here. The schools are actually, the education is quite good. I mean, the amenities could be improved, obviously, and stuff like that. But things like cleaning the snow when it snows. I mean, there's frustrations here for sure. But overall, yeah, I think I plan to improve my surroundings while also making money. Yeah, I think we can do both. Yeah. So yeah.
But already, so 7 years, right, since you founded the company, going back all those years when you were out showing apartments, doing viewings as a real estate agent. I guess you've seen a lot of changes in the market, right, since then.
Yeah, I think in the quality of our colleagues from other companies, I would say it hasn't changed that much. It's a very unprofessional sphere. There is some kind of company saying that they have licenses to do real estate, but there's no requirement on the government side for brokers to have real estate, which means no fiduciary responsibility, no responsibility whatsoever.
So it's an unlicensed industry.
But you consider it completely unlicensed and Wild West. Someone could sell you a place, tell you it's a great deal, you believe them, and you could find out later you paid twice the market price, and you couldn't do it, even if you could find them, which you probably wouldn't be able to find them. There's nothing you can do to them. You have no legal basis, no challenge over that. So there's definitely a lot to be desired. So I try to do with our brand that we are an island of stability in this insanity. You know, I teach my agents, like, don't do what they're doing, don't listen to them. You know, force our standards on them a bit. You know, what we expect, because you know we want to be stable and open with our buyers who are investing big money. And we want to buy second and third places. You know, several of our buyers have bought multiple places with us. You know, and that's the best sign you're doing something right. Other changes on the rental market, I think there's more nicer apartments. There's been a refreshment, you know, no small part to do what we've done with renovations, things like that. But overall, there's still a huge gap. So I think the rental market hasn't changed that much. The sales is cyclical, as Ukrainians have found out. I think the market started forming around early 2000s because the 90s was a wild time in this part of the world, and there was no market to speak of. People, they just sold stuff and they needed the cash. It didn't make any sense. So you kind of just got to see a market forming early 2000s, and then prices went up with the global bubble. Right, this is purchase prices. And then they dropped, significantly after global bubble, and then dropped again after the war, Crimea, the revolution, things like that. And then they slowly dropped. So you had this peak and then slow dropping, and then they stayed low until about a year and a half ago. They were kind of stable at the bottom, I think. Although people kept saying, oh, they're going to drop again. I didn't see their basis for that. And there's no credit available. There's already been the war. There's already been the economic crisis. How low can you go at the end of the day, right? And so they were low for a while, and in the last year and a half, we've seen prices kind of slowly, steadily increase. And this is without credit being available. Credit has not having an effect. This is just, I think, a renewed wealth accumulation among some people. A lot of IT people coming in. There's certain industries that are starting to make money again. River trade is going up. The crop prices are quite good. So there's a lot of different segments of the economy. It's not like a resource-rich country in one resource, which, there are a lot of countries like that, including maybe a neighboring country, that you're dependent on one thing that can really, your economy rides that, those prices. I think here, it has quite a diversified economy, which is another reason why, I believe in the future here. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've really seen the IT sector grow in Ukraine over the last 5 or 6 years, and you see that have quite an impact on the market, and you say that's one of the things that's now driving this steady increase in real estate prices.
Yeah, I think so. And also on the tenant side too, prices dropped a bit with COVID on the rental side, and who was picking them up? A little bit lower than foreign tenants were paying, but it was actually more often than not it was an IT person. They would say they made the offer, and I go, and they say local person, and I say, oh, it's an IT person, right? And they're like, yeah. So they have, they're not spending as much as an embassy would pay for their employee, but still, it's closing the gap. Whereas, 5-7 years ago, I think the locals were not, if they're going to pay the kind of money an expat's paying, they were going to pay for a new building outside the center, or, in kind of an area that is all brand new complex, which foreign tenants tend not to like. Our foreign tenants tend to like the historical center. But now we're seeing a little bit of migration towards the center from these locals with some cash to spend, let's put it that way. So the gap is closing between the so-called expat price, which I've never been a big believer in, and the local price. There is just different tastes, and they spend money on different things, I think. So there's the biggest rent I've ever seen was a local, and he paid a year in advance. And I wasn't there, but I've heard the story. It's just cash like this to cover the rent, which is 5-figure rent plus, so the idea that some expats are way overpaying for everything, you could say that, but I feel like it's just preferring to pay for different things. I think it was a different market. But I do see some merging, let's put it that way. So another change in the market there, yeah. So
you mentioned you're most focused more on historical buildings, and that's geographically, of course, Kyiv, you said it's a sprawling city, but your footprint is focused on quite a small part of the city, right?
Yeah, I would say it's maybe about a square kilometer, more or less. It's really tight. I live on one edge of what I would consider like the area we focus our investments on, and I walk about less than 20 minutes to the office, which is towards the other end. And so it's focused on this high part of Kyiv, which is about 1,000 years old. The UK embassy is actually nearby, in this Golden Gate area. That's really kind of what we consider the heart of historical Kyiv. Our office is one street over from Golden Gate. And then the Shevchenko Park, which is obviously a park, and it's pleasant, and so people want to live near the park. Although it's hard to find places near there because you have universities and museums that take a lot of the buildings around there, so there's not quite a lot available. And then kind of in the lower government district, which is where I live, which is quite safe, but there are some protests sometimes. So it's not for everybody. For me, it's totally fine. I take videos and pictures and stay home. So yeah, those are kind of the three main areas we focus on. I've put it on a map. I mean, if the map is this big, I mean, you're looking at a real small section of the city that we focus on. So I tell clients who are looking to do full buildings, I say it's not a full building, but it's almost that. You know, if you got 30 properties within a few block area, it's almost equivalent of having, you know, a building with 10 units. You know, they're fungible. You know, they're all similar and just a matter of size and whatever here and there. So, yeah.
Okay. Do you have intentions to look at other areas of Kyiv or other cities outside of Kyiv? Of course, we have Lviv, Odessa, Kharkov, other cities throughout Ukraine, which also carry big populations in the millions. Do you have intentions to go out and look at opportunities outside of this 1 kilometre historic?
Yeah, I know. We're very spoiled. You know, it's really crazy, but I feel like running around the city, I did it before. I used to go all over the city, and just sometimes you go to a viewing and it takes you an hour to get there, an hour back, and it's just a viewing. You're not sure they're going to take it. So I really wanted to focus and become a pro at every, block by block. So in terms of branching out, plan was before to do another city. I think Lviv was going to be our number 2. We definitely had serious plans to do that. Then things just got really busy. And it's a good thing in Kyiv, and so since we picked up business so much, I've really focused on Kyiv. Of course, Lviv and Odessa there's a lot of expat demand for housing. It's different. It's not embassy-based and things like that. It's, I think, more a lot of tourist-based stuff. Lviv is a great tourist city year-round, actually. I think Odessa in the summer is fantastic as well. I think I changed my mind and realized I think there's so much to do in Kyiv. I think we'll stick with that, and I think the next step, other areas, yeah, for sure. Which area? I don't know. I think you just can't miss. There's housing demand everywhere, and I think as long as you're near a metro, it doesn't have to be in the historical center. I think I saw that opportunity, and I just thought, this is like going to pass once in our lifetime to be able to grab a section of the market, a significant section of the market in the historical center of this ancient city. But moving forward, if you're going for the local market, you just can't miss. I mean, there's people on the left bank who love living out there. There's people in the south. It really depends. And so where we end up, I don't know, but we're definitely planning to branch out in a few years for sure.
But I guess you have, like any business, you've built your business based on demand, right? And this square kilometre that we talk about in historic Kyiv, this is where we see the most demand from expatriates. Yeah,
for sure. Like I said, that bedrock, when the tide pulled out, we saw what was standing and where they wanted to live and everything like that. And prices dropped so much that it's once in a lifetime opportunity to pick up, once in a cycle, let's say 30-year cycle, to pick up property so cheap. So, and I have tenants right now come to me and say, hey, how about Podol? And Podol's very charming, and I like it. But Podol's like 2 meters above sea level. Sorry. So I mean, if you can buy on the top of the hill, and it's only a bit cheaper down there, and it's harder to find good-paying tenants down there, I would say. I mean, there are tenants for sure. People say, "Oh, I love it. It's charming." I know. But definitely the most dense, reliable, consistent demand is where we work. That's why we're there. And I'm not. People say, "Oh, you're just selling because you do it." I say, "No, I do it because it's what the most reliable thing is." And when it gets played out, when it's too expensive or whatever, we'll branch out somewhere else. But right now, I mean, we haven't supplied every expat with a property yet. So we got a ways to go. Yeah.
But do you see your competitors have similar strategies? Those that are focused on the expatriate market, that are also very much focused on this same 1 square kilometre?
On the rental side, yeah. There's definitely maybe 4 or 5 other agencies that we consistently go head to head with from the rental side. If we have the property, they have the owner. If we have the owner, they have the tenant. So so rental market has the most competition, which is another reason I wanted to bring on properties directly, because then we can control the process, at least make sure the cleaning's done, make sure that the owners agree to bank transfer, not just cash, so we can control the quality of the advertisements. A lot of owners here, when they want to rent something out, they call 5 agencies. They think it's better. If you have 5 people working for you, nobody works for you. I can tell you that, because everyone's just trying to beat the other person. They're not trying to satisfy the owner, get the best tenant. They're just trying to get in there first to beat the other 4 agencies. So I think it's a mistake to branch out. If you do 2, maybe if you work it out, you can work. But anything more than 2, I tell owners all the time, like, nobody works for you. They're just working for themselves at that point. Because it doesn't make any sense to invest in advertising and going over there. So with our places that we have exclusive, we have the keys. We can show up anytime, weekends, mornings, evenings. It's not a problem. And place is clean. We have shoe coverings if it's like wet outside, or things like that. So the rental thing is definitely the most competitive in that sense that it's most fungible, that people don't see as much of a difference. But now that we have properties of our own, I think people start to see the difference, that we have our own, property management properties. In terms of overall strategy, no, I think no one else is putting it all together at all. I mean, they're doing, like some rental broker advised an owner on a renovation, which is fine, things like that, which is good. When I was doing this, no owner ever asked me what they should do for the renovation. They just give you the apartment, they go rent it out for X dollars. Don't ask you the price, don't ask you who wants to live there, don't ask you what the design should look like. You can imagine, that's why there was such a disconnect between what the tenants wanted and what was on the market. It's because the owners just did what they wanted to do and were telling the brokers to go fetch me X number of dollars, and it worked because there's such a supply sometimes, but I think now we're trying to really match it up where when they're here, they don't feel like they're in Ukraine, they feel like they're at home. Because I love Ukraine, I've been here a long time. People get homesick though. So if they're home and they see, or they're home, their apartment in Kyiv, and they see familiar appliances, a familiar style, familiar materials that they saw back home, I think it really means something to them, and they're willing to pay, I think a good price for that benefit.
So how would you compare Vestor.Estate with these other companies that you're going up to head with, your competitors?
Yeah, again, they don't have it. It's not a one-stop shop, And I know some clients don't like that. They want to branch out and play one side off the other. And that's understandable too. But a lot of our clients are actually, I would say, quite wealthy, and they want everything in one place. They want to know that someone's responsible. So when they talk to me, someone on my team, they know that whatever happens, we can't run from it. Because if you have five different companies doing the 5 different things we do, let's say. They're all going to blame each other. I guarantee it. It's just the way. It's just in human nature to say, "I wasn't me. It was their guy." You're never going to find out unless you really know what you're doing. So, with us, I can't say, "Oh, it wasn't me. It was my property manager." It doesn't work that way. The buck stops here. So, for the benefit, is that you're getting it all at one. You're getting all the responsibility under one roof. I think if it's an expat understanding of what should be done, ideas about responsibility. So other agencies, nobody else is doing all the things together. Therefore, you're going to have to patch together all the things that we do. And I think sometimes buyers while they're doing that, we're buying apartments underneath them. Because we put things in place. Like we have the escrow set up where the deposit money is in the escrow already, like $5,000 or $10,000. When something pops up, we send it for approval. We send the money for deposit within a day or two.
So very quick, right?
Very quick,
very fast.
Yeah, even sometimes faster than cash. I got to go withdraw the cash. And guess what? The money's already in the account. We can transfer it to the seller. So I've definitely set it up in this very set up arranged way. And one of the reasons I had a meeting with a British potential client. He said he had dozens of apartments in Paris. I was very impressed by that at the time. I couldn't think of owning, having dozens of places anywhere because this was about 5 years ago. He said, "What if I want to buy 8 places next month, for example?" And my eyes opening, and I just realized I needed to make that happen. I needed to make that possible because I want more clients like that who want to buy 8 places. But at the time, we had the sales, the rentals, and that was it. Everything in between, they had to find somebody else, and they couldn't, or they didn't want to, didn't have time to. So I'm just providing services that people have asked me for. Mm-hmm. I still add services all the time. I keep hearing the same question. I go, you know what? Let me.
Like the escrow service, for example.
The escrow, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is going to be insurance, actually. Mm-hmm. You have to scout out different insurance companies, bounce them off. So we've scouted up a couple ourselves, and then if the client wants to set it up, we'll charge an administrative fee for doing the work. So it's another source of income, and they're getting what they want. So I'm just meeting the market demand. I think I'm the least creative person you're ever going to meet. What I'm doing here is just no reinventing the wheel at all. Just kind of I think there's a lot of these companies in the U.S. I read a lot and watch a lot of videos in the U.S. of how things are done and try to bring a little bit of that where possible. Of course, you have Ukrainian characteristics on a lot of these things, but in terms of the services, I'm not putting out anything I don't see demand for automatically.
So would you say that Vestor.Estate being able to offer this full 360-degree service and the accountability that comes with it, are you one of a kind in the market here?
I think we are right now. I do. Yeah, in the residential market for sure. Like I said, the commercial market is quite developed. If you look at the new developments, they're also managed, you could say, I guess, but no, they're not rented out. They're usually individual owners buy them all, and then there's a management company, and so it's even less than ideal, I would say, for the new construction. So for what we're doing, I don't know anybody else who does what we do across the whole. It's literally A to Z. If you send us a power of attorney, if someone sends me a power of attorney and says, "I trust you," that's all they need to do, really. Once I have the power of attorney, I'll get their tax ID for them. Once that's ready, we'll do the escrow agreement, then they can send the money and we'll find the place, soon after or whatever. The rest is just the details. The biggest point is for the trust. For those who don't, they can of course come see how we work. We show them our office is in an apartment we renovated. We can see projects going on. If they want to do the due diligence on us, like we're happy, we're very open about this stuff. We show them what's going on. So absolutely, I think we're unique, and it's just a matter of trust, and that's why I try to be open and do interviews like this so people can see what we're doing here. This painting actually was done by one of our employees, Christina. So we use it kind of like for staging to give it a nice feel. So she spent some good time on it and decided to put it in the apartment while we're looking for a tenant. And here we have a really nice couch as well. Good size. I mean, it takes up a lot of space, but people like to have guests over, so you don't want to go too. Even though the room's not that huge, you don't want to have too small of a couch and things like that. People still have guests. Also, we have heated floors here. This is the control for the heated floor in the kitchen. So you turn it on, keeps your feet nice and toasty in the winter, and actually the same in the bathroom where we have the tile. So it adds extra heat, but it also just feels good too. So no one complains.
There's nothing worse than getting out of a warm bed onto a cold floor.
Yeah, exactly. And the flooring we use is engineered hardwood, which is not laminate. It kind of has a laminate plank, but then on top is a thin layer of actual wood. And it feels and looks looks natural, but it also feels more warm. And here we also have custom-made kitchens. For each space we buy is always so different. You can't just buy from the shop usually. And we have full-size dishwasher. You have things like the self-closing cupboards, so you just go ahead and push it, let it close. We tend to do Bosch for almost all our appliances. Lots of storage space for dishes as well. So again, it's a 64-meter apartment, but people like to cook and like to have guests and things like that. The table actually opens up to spread out a little bit more if you need a little more space.
Okay.
So yeah.
Nice. So appliances, the refrigerator and the dishwasher, you keep them all hidden away?
Yeah, we try to hit it. It's kind of a trend now. Personally, I don't think it makes a big difference, I thought, but really, tenants kind of appreciate it because that smooth facade look with the refrigerator and the freezer like that. And of course, just all the different cupboards, it's just so much space for all the dishes,
Yeah. So Sean, how would you compare construction in the historical old buildings compared to new constructions, which we now see a lot of them popping up both in the city centre in Kyiv and on the outskirts of Kyiv? There's loads, hundreds of them popping up. How would you compare the opportunities in historical buildings to new buildings?
Yeah, I think it depends on overall on the strategy. I think most of our buyers, maybe it's because of my own bias, are more like value investors. So you have the two types of old buildings we focus on are they're called Tsar buildings, or pre-revolutionary. It means before the Russian Revolution, before the communists took over. So these were built during the Russian imperial times, and for the most part, they were built to last 200 years. They have walls with thickness between 70 centimeters to a meter. So that's that really carries a lot of load and can last a long time. This old brick. And then you have the Stalin buildings, which the ones that were built just before World War II and just after. They're actually very similar quality, maybe a bit lower ceilings, but either way, those are the two places we pretty much only buy in usually. They have balconies, things like that, and the locations are good. So these things are built to last a long time. They have aesthetic issues, obviously. This is the biggest complaint we get a lot about the entrances being dilapidated, older lifts, noisy, dirty, the facade maybe needs a paint job. But to me, that's aesthetic. So because I like to focus on value investing, we can fix some of those things right away. The facade is a bit trickier because you need approvals and things like that. But in terms of the entrance, things like that, plus the apartment itself, we can fix all the electricity and plumbing and stuff like that. So I tend to find that the rental yields would be much higher in these ones. The new buildings are sold for more, but the rents are not necessarily higher than they are in older buildings. Mostly because the new buildings that are available to buy, they're not in the center where expats would like to live. And since we're so focused on this 1 square kilometer, you can imagine there's not that many new buildings actually. There's a couple, and again, their purchase prices are way higher than the rent would garner. Therefore, I see the yields being the best. In terms of overall for the new buildings, I think if you want to buy 10, 20 places in a new building, that you can't buy 10, 20 that easily in an old building. You have to find 10, 20 different sellers usually. So that's one benefit, but buyers should be very careful because not just the construction issues, you have licensing issues with the city. If they didn't get all the permits, they might not be able to commission on time. Also, even if it is commissioned on time and you didn't lose your investment because they can also go bankrupt before they finish, there's a lot of risks here, so people should be very careful. But even if all the things go well, when you go to rent it out, what's going to happen is that a lot of the neighbors buy as an investment to buy and hold, not to renovate it and let out. And so you might have a renovated place, but your neighbor might not for 6 months. So then that renovation might start. The neighbor above might start the year after that, and then so on. So you might have renovations going on in a building for 3, 4, 5 years and even then you're going to have maybe 10% that are not renovated at all. And so you're going to have noise issues, dirt. So even though it's a new building, you're not really going to enjoy the benefit because people will be renovating. Because as you know, almost all developers here sell the apartments shell and core with no work done at all.
Yes,
so everyone needs renovation, but not everyone buys with the cash in hand to do renovations. So I think in terms of the investor looking to rent out, you're going to run into quite a few problems. Not that there are no problems with older buildings. There are. I think most of them are aesthetic or can be fixed within the renovation. Whereas the old buildings, there's a lot more variables to worry about in terms of legality, the financing of the developers, and then even when it's all finished and all said and done, renting it out with all the noise and dust and everything like that, I think it's going to be a bit inconvenient for a lot of people. So yeah,
somewhat problematic if you're showing it to a potential client, right?
Yeah,
and there's banging and dust everywhere.
You can say,
in the
it's just one
communal
renovation.
areas.
It could be 5 on the same floor. Literally, you can see the tracks, you can see the dust, you can see the materials in the corridor, the workers running in and out. And they're dinging up the hallways with all the stuff they're carrying. The lifts, sometimes they use the lifts and they ding them up. So even this is even a nicer new building. So something to think about.
What would you say about the quality of construction in these new buildings compared to old? You said in these old buildings you've often got very thick walls.
Yeah.
I know I certainly do in my apartment. How does this compare with the new buildings?
Well, the new buildings are almost all using monolithic technology, which is quite old and not really used much. I mean, it's just poured concrete, it sets, they do the next floor. So it's very strong, and it's not a seismic area, so in a way it's okay, but there's the risks of the rebar inside not being sealed properly, which can cause moisture to get inside and actually cause corrosion. So I've heard anywhere from 50 to 100 year lifespans, even for the new buildings, which if you think you're spending that kind of money and, but 50, your kids might not even get to live there basically. So, and again, because of the rental yields, I think just overall, we tend to focus on in the old stuff. So I don't think they're going to fall down, but I think, and also the different classes of new buildings. They have economy class and they have all the way up to the business and then the elite class. But the internal structure of the building isn't necessarily that much different. Maybe a couple more centimeters of concrete between the floors, but the internal construction quality is not that much different. It's the biggest difference comes with the maybe underground parking being a little bit better. Although I know one building in the center of Kyiv that doesn't have underground parking.
A new building?
New building, 0. I mean, if you said economic, but a negative externalities when you're pushing all those people who live there, 120 units, so imagine 100 cars onto the streets around the building. It's already a crowded area. And I don't know how they got licenses for that, but things like that you see and you say, how is that possible? So
if you're looking at a new building and you're looking at apartments or a number of apartments, maybe investing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, would you expect a parking space to be included?
Definitely not. No, parking
Definitely
spaces.
not.
No. Parking spaces are sold totally separately. And if you're kind of late, where you're late stage, of buying, a lot of the people who have a lot of money, they buy 2 and 3 and 4 places for their cars. 2 cars for the husband, 2 cars for the wife. I mean, people are not poor; they're locals, and so you might end up buying when 80% are sold of apartments and 100% have been sold of parking spaces have been sold for a long time. Therefore, they don't allot them or give everyone a chance and then sell them later. They make a lot of money off the parking. Actually, parking spaces can cost as much as a small apartment in other parts of the city. So downtown parking space could be 20, 30, 40,000. It's the highest I've heard, but it could be higher somewhere else. And then I've heard of apartments being sold for 30,000 outside the center. So, yeah, it's pricey, but people, when it's winter, they're willing to pay for it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you keep the snow off the car, right?
Yeah, it's too much trouble to shovel. Rather pay 40,000, right? So,
yeah. No, I know that there was a new building in the center where I looked at an apartment of $45,000 they wanted for a parking space in Chicago.
Yeah.
Which is an awful lot of money for somewhere to park your car.
And
right?
probably the ratio, I know in some countries it's probably like a ratio, like for each apartment or each square meter, there should be some amount of meters for parking. And there might be a ratio, but no one seems to be listening to it. So there's a lot of that where not enough and sold too early or not built at all. I mean, it causes massive issues. So to me, it's a bit Wild West with the new buildings because they're built out to the center and not as many eyes on them, and they can maybe bully the neighbors to take over the parking lot and just use that instead of underground parking. So. But it's not ideal.
Okay, so a lot of considerations with new buildings that you probably won't come up against with the more historic buildings.
You can't beat it though. It's nice, it's fancy, it looks like it's ready to move in. You know, it could work out really, really well. But I think when you get into scale and you're looking for a long-term tenant, I think you're gonna run into a lot of unexpected issues. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about exit opportunities for investors. So they're looking at investors maybe watching this video and thinking about putting money into real estate in Ukraine, and then thinking maybe 5-10 years down the line wanting to take that money out after making their yields. How would that look?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a few buyers, I think they bought and they told us, oh, it's going to keep it in the family, it's for my kids or something like that, but you know, as an heirloom, let's say. But yeah, most of our people, obviously, you buy with the kind of end in mind, you know, a lot of our sophisticated investors. And so I usually tell them, you know, we're going to probably sell it to a lot more money than we bought it for to locals who didn't appreciate the center back then. But now there's, you know, with all the traffic going on and things like that, and the center of Kyiv getting much better overall, but the traffic getting worse, right? So you have more restaurants, more places to go, it's cleaner, it's safer. At the same time, if you lived somewhere else that was considered prestigious a couple of years ago, and now you got to drive 2 hours each way to get to work, they might want to start migrating to the center. And I think that trend has happened everywhere that I can think of. I can't think of, honestly, a city that I've been to that hasn't happened. You know, it's happened in Prague, it's happened in Moscow, which is, you know, does a lot of trends, sees a lot of trends there before you see them in Kyiv. It's definitely happened in Boston, where I'm from. Like, it was a rough downtown 30 years ago, and now good luck buying something for cheap. So I think we're buying stuff cheap when people undervalued it, and then in the future, people with money, the ones who buy 2 and 3, 4 parking spaces in new buildings, they have a lot of money. I think they're going to appreciate the center and being near schools and just walk to the park or whatever. And I think they'll migrate back, and they're going to pay a premium to get back into the center because they didn't take the opportunity to buy when we did. Let's put it that way. So I think selling it for a lot more money to locals is the exit. Yeah.
So I mean, there's of course in the city centre, we've spoken a number of times about this square kilometre, and the space of course is finite. There's no way to go up or out. So there will always be, you believe, a demand for real estate in this area.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of the buildings have been there 100 plus years. The city itself was formed around this part, you know, over 1,000 years ago. And so, and just looking at trends everywhere else. I mean, someone can show me another modern European city that doesn't have a dense, you know, developed, clean center with a lot of mixed in with wealthy and nice restaurants. You know, I don't think Ukraine is going to buck the trend. They have for a while, and I think a lot of locals see these kind of comments from me, and they're always fighting with me. No, we like new buildings, and I say, yeah, things change, and it's not 2 years maybe, but it's 5 or 10 years, I think, for sure. And I was reading an article yesterday about the 15-minute city. You know, that people want to be convenient. They don't want to spend the commuting time anymore they did before. If they can get to school for their kids and they get the restaurants and the shops and live all in the same, the entertainment, you know, the opera is also in this historical center, right?
Cinemas, bowling, all sorts of stuff.
All this stuff. So, I mean, why are you driving 2 hours? I mean, yeah, the air quality is one thing. I don't deny that would be nice. But, you know, it's one issue, I think, with cleaner cars. You know, there's some green car movement going on. Me and my family, we just bought a hybrid recently, so you sort of see that. Maybe keep the big trucks out of the center. So this is something that can be dealt with. I don't think it's going to last forever. This kind of negative aspects of the center. I think it's a revitalization of a very vibrant center, and so I think it'll continue.
So with all your experience, 9 years of experience here in Ukraine, and guys that are watching this video outside that know maybe very little about the country, what advice could you give to people that are looking from outside, looking in, thinking about either moving to Ukraine, either moving to Kyiv or doing business and investing here in Kyiv?
Yeah, I would say the first thing I always thought was a massive opportunity. I think there's still a lot of very basic things that haven't been done yet, that haven't been done right. I don't know, maybe your opinion's different, but I can't think of a decent pub to go to watch sport. It never was since been here, because like I was home in this average sports pub outside of Boston, like, and they had like 15 TVs, but more importantly, they had 15 different things on almost. Where here, you go to the 15 TVs and there's 1 or 2 things on. So you have people go, oh, I want to watch this. I remember one day there was a big mega day where they had rugby and Formula One, and it was just a huge day for sport, and they couldn't show it all. that place is actually closed now, and that's one of the better ones, So I think things like that. There's just not just the pubs, but there's so many things that are just not done right. That could be done better, and that would influence the locals to get better. I think Uber came, they had a driving service here, Uklon. Uber came and made Uklon up their game fantastically, so everyone benefits. I think, and what I'm doing, I mean, people didn't appreciate it, but I think now people are, just kind of starting to see and I'm not crazy what I was doing. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for a lot of people doing a lot of different things. So. But on the flip side, you got to be very patient and persistent. Nothing's easy. I think the best analogy I use is like doing business underwater. Most things you can do them underwater. It's not as easy, but it's way harder. It can tire you out, but it can be done. And it just takes a lot more persistence. And if people establish relationships with whom they need, they'll find that you can find the people you need, but you don't just walk in and say, I need 10, just take 10 people to do. I mean, IT is a different sphere, I think, where you can hire 10 developers and things like that. But for my business, for example, I have to hire individually from different spheres. I don't hire people from other companies to come do what they did there. I mean, there's 2 exceptions I think of, but mostly I really hire people and start them from zero. So someone coming here, the entrepreneurial spirit wants to do something for sure. I think it's really so much to do, but you got to realize you got to build from scratch. You got to start real small building blocks, establish relationships, find the people, invest in them, train them, and you'll find that you can do a lot here. And I think the locals will also appreciate it. You don't come here and people don't muscle you out. Is that kind of a stereotype of the Eastern European gangster or something? I don't feel it at all. I feel, we're not so under the radar, but I don't feel like we're muscled down. There's no like threats, things like that. There's no pressure from the government, things like that. So I think if you do it right and start small, build the blocks up, you can build as big a business as you want, really, in a lot of different spheres, I would say.
So you would say the business community here really welcomes input from foreigners who are looking to either invest or get involved, launch startups, invest? That's
my feeling. I mean, I haven't felt much, tension from other ones, and I think, if you want to be a kind of a loudmouth, big show-off entrepreneur, that doesn't really work in this country. I think you draw attention to yourself, and not in a good way, or you have kind of showmen in other places, like in big personalities and things like that. But you don't want to do that. But I don't think there's opportunity for the huge stuff because it's controlled by different people. But on the entrepreneurial level, people doing business, I think there's so much opportunity, and I welcome it. And I think you'll find if you start off in a network with your the expats who have been here for a while, you can find a good base and jump from there to bigger things, I think. So that's what I would say.
Stay patient, right?
Patient and persistence. Nothing replaces persistence. Never forget that. So yeah. So.
Okay, right.
Let's go on the balcony and have a look at the great view we have here.
Oh wow, hey, look at that.
Never gets old, does it?
You won't get bored of that.
Yeah, it's one of the few UNESCO sites in Kyiv too, so and one of the reasons we wanted this place for the view. Wow. You can even see, looks like you can see the river far off there. St.
Andreevsky Spruce.
Yeah, St. Andrew's Church there, of course. The Hyatt Hotel right next to us, and of course the beautiful UNESCO St. Sophia's. Wow.
Oh, Sean, it really is a beautiful apartment.
Thank you. I'm very proud of what we've done here.
You can see the attention to detail that your design team have. I mean, it's pretty
all credit
special.
to the design team for sure.
Yeah. You say all the work is done by then contractors who you've worked with?
Yeah, we've done over 20 projects with them, plus we have friends who've done projects with them in the past, so really close with them, yeah.
Well, fantastic. I'll definitely know where to go when I need my next apartment in Kyiv.
Sounds good.
Super. Sean, thanks for your time. It was great.
Okay, great to see you, Sam. Thank you.
Care.
Cheers.